Hello and welcome to my channel. I hope you're well and that you're having a good day. I'm speaking to you from Germany, overlooking the Siebengebirge that's behind me. And I wanted to talk to you today about a book that I've been working on over the last few years that has the working title of Birmingham to Bonn, Finding Our Place in the World. As I've gone through the process of writing this book, I've had to deal with a lot of self-doubt. I really have questioned, why am I writing this book? Why should I publish it? Why would anybody be interested in reading it? It has seemed like there has been 100 reasons why I shouldn't write the book and why I shouldn't publish it. And so I needed to come up with something to counteract that. Some positive statements about why I have the right to do this. The Siebengebirge literally translates as the seven mountain range. And what I've done is I've come up with 7 reasons why I should publish my book. And they helped me to stay positive, helped me to silence all those nagging doubts I had, helped me feel more at ease with myself when I woke up in the middle of the night wondering what on earth I'm doing. So yeah, it's been really something quite special. And because I'm leaving Germany as well, I want to record some video footage of this beautiful region. Another quite interesting creative thought I had as well, whilst writing this book and whilst preparing for this video, was that these hills behind me seem very different depending on where you stand. And as you will see, they look very different whether I'm stood here or here or here or here. And what I realized with writing my book is that I was able to take some very different perspectives on my own life and on the life of those whom I love, my ancestors, because this is a book at its core about my family history and where I fit in with all of that. There are times when I felt I was too negative and that I should revise the book, give some more positive reflections on the things I've achieved and how I've lived my life. And there are times when I felt I was not negative enough, where I should have really opened up much more about some of the struggles I've had. But as writers, we all have to make decisions about where to draw those boundaries, about how much to share, and what kind of position to take on some of the dilemmas that we all face in life. So what I'll do now is I'll take you on a little journey with me through the Siebengebirge and reflect on these reasons why I wrote my book. So with no further ado, let's visit the Siebengebirge. Right, so now I am in the Siebengebirge at the foot of the Drachenfels, and it's a vineyard, as you can see behind me. And I always dreamed of living near a vineyard from my holidays in France. So when I came to live here in Bonn, I was delighted to discover this on my doorstep. There's another one as well, even closer to where we live. So we often used to walk our dog here. But anyway, this is not about my dog or my life in Germany, but this is about my book. And I chose this spot to talk about one of the reasons why I needed to finish my book. And this is all about bravery and courage. And what I hope to achieve through my book is to be brave enough to share what I've learned in life so that people know they're not alone in their struggles. My book talks about all sorts of things, from my depression to domestic violence against some of my ancestors, to war, to disease. Covers all sorts of topics, as you would perhaps expect when you write a book about the life of a family over 2 centuries. So yeah, that's one of the main things I hope to get out of this book. And yeah, I hope I encourage others to be bold, be brave, overcome all their doubts and fears, and put themselves out there. So I'm now on top of the Petersberg, and I have to say it's changed considerably since I was last here. The viewing area is now a beer garden, and the trees have grown so you can no longer see Bonn, at least not from where I was back down there. And there's even parking meters being installed, so I had to pay to park up here. So maybe there's another metaphor there somewhere for how life changes. Nevertheless, I'll try and find a nice spot here with some nice views so that I can talk about some of the other reasons why I felt I needed to write my book. And there we have it, look. I found a view of Bonn. Okay, the next reason for me wanting to write my book. One of the worst questions you can ask my daughter is, where are you from? And we have moved around an awful lot, and we're really not sure where we belong. I've heard it said, I think probably by Mel Robbins, that there's only something like a 1 in 400 trillion chance of any one of us being born. And I think that's based primarily on sort of biological, genetical coincidences and so on, involving the sperm and the egg and so on. But it's also about or at least in my opinion, it's also about all the remarkable coincidences that lead up to your life today. So if I look through my book, I can see stories, for example, about how my auntie caught TB. Whilst she was in the TB clinic in Birmingham, she met her husband. Her husband found a house in Stourport-on-Severn. They moved to that riverside town, and my family, my parents followed them. And that is where I met my wife. So just that one small example, if my auntie hadn't caught TB, my children wouldn't exist. And there's lots of those examples in my book. And so when I look through all of that, I feel both grateful for the life I have today. I have a better understanding of how I ended up here right now in Bonn, on the top of Petersburg. And I have a sense of hope that my children share in that gratitude and feel more deeply connected to England, the West Midlands, and the great city of Birmingham. Right, for this next place I'm going to have to do a little hike. It is in the high 20s today, so it's going to be a little bit of a struggle for me, but I'm sure it'll be worth it, and you'll get a nice view in a moment of the place where I will talk about my next reason for writing and publishing my book. And just out of interest, all of these places are full of memories for us, but two memories in particular of this route I'm on now. One is it's where we used to bring the kids sledging in the winters, so they had some great times up here. And the other is that during COVID we were not allowed to travel far from home, so this became our regular hiking trail, and we did it through a winter where we had quite a lot of snow actually, so it really helped to lift our spirits during a very challenging and difficult winter. So yeah, kind of mixed emotions about all of this place now, but yeah, still very beautiful. And we're about to go on a route called the Rundweg, so the round path, I guess that means, because it goes around the hill, as you might imagine. thankfully quite a lot of this walk is in shade, so that's helpful too. And for the last place in the Siebengebirge that I would go to after this viewing point will be on the top of the Drachenfels, and I very much hope the vernacular railway will be running, so I can just sit on an old train and be driven in style to the very top. But I also hope to get some food, because I'm now starting to feel rather hungry. Okay, we're now almost at our viewing point. Just to hope there's no one else here, so that we have it to ourselves. You can see a nice little hut here where people stop for their picnics. And I'm lucky there is no one else here. And look at that view. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, another reason for me writing this book. So the headline would be that I want to ensure previous generations of my family, including my parents and my grandparents, are never forgotten. And I think that's a really good reason for publishing the book. It is made up of some fascinating stories. Some were written by them, so it's lovely to be able to have been able to take their work, edit it, and include it in my book. So in a way, I'm also showcasing their work, which is another reason for pushing ahead with this. But also there are just some wonderful stories in there, you know, about my nan raising children during World War II in one of the most heavily bombed cities in the UK, Birmingham. There's stories about how my great-great-grandmother, Elizabeth Lockwood, emigrated to Canada. There's stories of how my great-grandfather was killed in the First World War. There is the story of my great-grandfather, Josiah Stokes, who worked on the canal barges in Birmingham. And my other great-grandfather, William Simmons, who was a coal miner in Lancashire and in Staffordshire. And so there's a lot of fascinating stories, and obviously some heartwarming stories for me as well, because they're ones I can remember, such as, you know, my mother and father, how they met. Well, I don't remember that, but it's, you know, I feel very deeply connected to that story. So there's stories of how they met, about my birth and how all my family came round to our little terrace house in Balsall Heath to see me after I'd been born. And stories about how my parents used to go out to places like the cinemas in Birmingham, and how they used to go walking over the Lickey Hills. So I don't want any of those stories to be lost. I want my ancestors to be remembered. Of course, I have had to deal with some dilemmas, because not all of the stories are nice stories. You know, there are some difficult scenes that I had to describe concerning my great-grandfathers in particular, who were not so nice to their wives. But in general, I think they're just lovely stories that gave me a nice warm feeling, and I hope other people enjoy reading them, even if they're not from my family. And the feedback I've had so far, I sent it out to 15 people, and a few of them have already read the book, and they gave me really positive feedback. They said it was very easy to read, it flowed nicely, and there were some fascinating stories in there. I learned that my family members have displayed incredible resilience, determination, a real kind of fighting and winning spirit. But I've also seen how they've been affected by trauma, you know, how they've had bad nerves and anxiety. And so it's been possible for me to understand some of the qualities and characteristics that I have and that my children have, because I think that these things do get passed on to us. You know, you can't live through a war and not be affected by it. And if you're affected by it, then your children are going to be affected by it. you know. So the fact that I used to have to hide under the dining room table when I was a child every time it thundered must have had an effect on me, and might explain some of the anxiety I have today. And that's as a direct consequence, I think, of the fact that my mother lived through a war. So I don't want these stories to be lost. I think they help me and others in my family to have a better understanding of the context in which they were born and raised. And I think that's a really good reason to overcome all my fears about publishing the book, and about silly things like people won't like me, or that I'm going to get criticised for publishing it. So there you go. Next, the Drachenfelds. So here I am on the last point on my little journey today, on top of the Drachenfels, overlooking the Rhine. Quite spectacular, I'm sure you'd agree. And I'm here with my book, Birmingham to Bonn, Finding Our Place in the World. And on the cover is a photo of my daughters in the train that comes up here. This was during the winter of 2008. I feel that photo has some meaning because we just had no idea what was ahead of us. We were embarking on an incredible journey, and somehow or other I feel a deep sense of emotion whenever I look at that picture, so I've put it on the front of my book. The last reason then for me wanting to publish this book is to give something back to the towns where I've lived. So whether it's Birmingham, where I started off my life, Stourport-on-Severn, where I grew up, or here in Bonn, where I currently live, I hope that I give something of interest to the people who live there, maybe help promote it a little bit, because these towns have been good to me and I feel I owe them something, and I wish them every success in the future. I'm always rooting for Birmingham. I want its football teams to do well, its pop stars to do well, and the city itself to do well, and the same with Bonn here. So how do I summarise all this then? Well, whenever I wake up in the middle of the night with imposter syndrome, or a sense of dread over the possibility of publishing this book, I think of these 7 good reasons why I should press ahead. And here comes one of those lovely trains now, so I'll turn and face it. So so it's about being brave enough to share what I've learned, showing other people they're not alone in their struggles, giving my family a sense of belonging, giving something back to the towns where I've lived, ensuring my ancestors are not forgotten, and showcasing their work because of all the nice stories they've written. And now it's time for me to get on that train and go back home, and talk to you again soon.